there, I'm Mandy Yarkich from Creative Matters, and you're listening to Creative Matters on Air, where I have conversations with new and established artists from around New Zealand. I love to listen to artists' stories and learn about their creative process, and maybe you do too, which is why I've made this podcast, to inspire, inform and educate. I hope you can take away something positive and encouraging from each of these amazing stories to help you on your own creative journey. Welcome to Creative Matters episode 15. Thank you so much for listening. Today I'm talking to Sharon Keightley. Sharon is a passionate quilt pattern designer and a quilt maker from Auckland, New Zealand. A self-confessed lover of reproduction fabrics, her favourite thing to do is appliqué, using pieced blocks to complete the quilt. Sharon loves to design and make quilts and share her patterns and her fondness of vintage and reproduction fabrics. Experimenting with this range of unique fabric styles allows her to add her own historical vision into her design work. You can see her beautiful work on her blog on our website, creativematters.co.nz, and also see her patterns and quilts on her website, sharonkeightleyquilts.com. Welcome to Creative Matters on Air, Sharon.
Thank you so much for having me, Mandy.
It's lovely to have you here, and you were recommended by a friend of mine to talk to, so I'm sure I can trust her judgment, and you're going to be really interesting to listen to.
We'll see.
And also, last weekend the weekend before, we happened to bump into each other at the Wolf Fest, didn't we? So
yeah.
That's not the usual place I hang out, but, it was nice to meet you then.
Yeah, it was great to meet you because then I don't feel quite so nervous at the moment.
Exactly. It's not so strange. Okay, so, I'm really looking forward to hearing all about it. Now, Sharon is, as I said, a quilt maker and a quilt pattern designer. And as we were just saying earlier, Sharon and I, it's going to be interesting for me because I don't know a lot about this practice or the process, really. So looking forward to learning more.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It's something that I suppose there are a lot of people who don't know much about, except for us quilters, of course.
Yeah. So it's getting the word out will be good. So let's just go right back to the beginning. And can you tell us where you were born and what your childhood was like and when you started getting creative?
Okay. Well, I was born in Keightley. I grew up in a little town, Kohukohu, on the Hokianga Harbour.
Mm-hmm, I know that well.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was very beautiful. My parents owned a dairy farm. So I grew up around lots of animals, lots of horses and dairy cows, of course, dogs and you name it. We had it. Cats, lots of pets. And it was a great place to grow up. There was a lot of freedom. I loved the nature, the farm. Used to spend hours and hours just out walking on the farm and helping Dad, of course, get the cows in early in the morning with the fog still sitting on the harbour. It was just an amazing memories. Mm. My mum was very creative. Well, both my parents were actually, but my mother was an amazing dressmaker. And so she made all of our clothes. I could just see a picture in a book and tell her what I wanted and she would make it. So I had that. She taught my sister and I how to sew. So we had these amazing days together in her little sunroom where her sewing machine was, and the three of us would just sew. Keightley was one of our closest towns, which was about an hour and a half's drive. Mm. And I can still remember when the Mangamuka Gorge was a metal road. Yeah. We would go there probably once every 6 months at the most, and the first place Mum would go would be the fabric shop. And she'd buy enough fabric for us to have, for our clothes for that next season or whatever. Wow. And I would get to choose what fabric I'd have for a dress or whatever it was. and we'd come home and sew them up.
How amazing.
And that, at the time it was just what she did. But now I look back and my sister and I both cherish the fact that we had that with her. She also knitted all our jumpers, sewed, crocheted, done all of that. She had an amazing garden, flower garden. I know all the names to flowers and things, although I don't think I'm that great a gardener, but I know it all because of Mum. Yeah, she was really creative. She played the piano and she sang in the choir, and so I had that experience when I was young, and she would always be behind us. If we wanted to do something, she would be right in there, boots and all, helping us or, cheering us along. Dad was very quiet, very solid sort of person.
Farming stock.
Yeah, a hard worker, but he also had a love for wood, and he would build extensions on our homes. He got into wood turning when he retired, and he was very creative as well in his own way.
Wow, it's a really creative family.
Yeah.
And did your mum, when she looked at the pictures that you showed her for making clothes, did she actually make a pattern up or just freestyle?
No, she would just grab patterns that she had and say, okay, I'll have those sleeves off that pattern and this, front or whatever, and I'll put this gathering in or wherever I want it. She would just make it up as she went along.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
But so great to see that sort of talent.
Absolutely. And when I used to try and say to her, look, I just want to make my own dress from start to finish and I want to follow the pattern, and she would look at the pattern and say, well, that's not how you do it. You've got to do. So I never really got to do it, from start to finish by myself.
That's great.
And she'd say, well, I paid a lot for the money for that fabric. I think I better put the zip in.
She was quite protective of her craft.
She was very much a perfectionist as well. So if it wasn't right, it had to be unpicked. It was never that'll do.
Yeah. Which
it
I
had
guess,
to be right.
And it's good for you to learn that as a quilt maker now, I guess.
Absolutely.
Good habits.
Her mum, my grandmother, would come and stay long weekends and general holidays, and she would sit on the couch and knit and crochet those fine doilies, bedspreads, those kinds of things. And she used to take orders from people and sell her work. And she was very strict and most of the time quite grumpy. And we were all a little bit weary of her, to be quite honest. But if I sat with her, she would teach me how to do all of that. And she would actually be lovely. But, yeah, she could be a bit,
that generation.
Children are to be seen and not heard.
Exactly.
So we always had to be on our best behaviour when Nana come to stay.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. And so did you imagine, at that time where obviously you were getting quite proficient with those kind of skills, did you imagine that would be something you would do as an adult?
No, not at all. I knew that I would always sew and knit and crochet. I knew that was something that I loved to do, and I always made my own clothes, when I first left home and things, because obviously it was cheaper for me to do that. And I made my children's clothes when they were young, but it was never something I thought would be something I could do as a profession.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So I learned piano when I was young. I think Mum started teaching me when I was 6, roundabout. But I never really sat any exams or anything as a young child. I just learned for pleasure. And when I got to around about, I think I might have been pregnant with my eldest son, I decided I would like to sit the exams. So mum and dad said that they would pay for my tuition if that's what I wanted to do. And they brought me a piano for my 21st, which was amazing. So I then studied and sat on my exams up to, I think grade 8 was the last one I passed, and sat so that I could teach music. So that was what I was going to do.
Interesting. So what happened?
I did start teaching children how to play the piano, and I really enjoyed it for a while. Then we moved out to South Head, which was actually right next to a school.
Waianeke.
Yeah. So I started teaching young children from Waianeke, the old 1 or 2 as well. But it just became quite difficult because my boys would come home from school at the same time that I was teaching young children, and they would need me for different things, and so it just become a bit more difficult to do that. So I thought I'd just have a break for a while until they were kind of gone, but then I didn't really go back to it.
Well, there you go. And obviously you were, as a hobby, you were sewing and doing all these things anyway, but how, when did the shift happen where it became more of a profession?
Well, as my boys grew up, my eldest boy is IT, and he had gone to Unitech to do a computer science degree, which he only did 6 months of, by the way. But his friend that had met there was doing website design, and James had just designed his first lot of websites and wanted some people to trial them. And Derek had seen that I had started writing the odd pattern or two, and he said, "Mum, I think you need a website." And this is way back, like 2007, around about. And I didn't even know, how to do a website, let alone think about the fact that I needed one. But he convinced me, so I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. And that's sort of where it started. I decided, well, I've got this website, I've got to do something with it.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you weren't really thinking of it as a business as such until then?
No, I won't say I wasn't. I wasn't thinking it would become what it has. I kind of wanted to earn a little bit of pocket money, and I thought I might just develop a few patterns and just see how they would go. And I also kind of thought I'd make cushions or bags and sell them to shops or something and just, earn a bit of pocket money.
And at that stage, was it more made things that you were thinking about selling with the odd pattern?
It was, yeah. But with the quilt, it takes a long time to make one. And I didn't really want to go down the path where somebody said, I want this in this colour and that colour and I want this design. I think it would have done my head in, to be quite honest. I needed to just be able to create them as I wanted it to look. I was kind of on my own little path of what I wanted to do.
Well, that's your expressing your own creativity.
Yeah. And I thought if they like them once they're made.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then it's like, how much are they worth? Because I couldn't charge by the hour because it would be worth way more than somebody could afford to pay for it. So I obviously followed people through books, and at that stage there was no internet, really sort of social media or anything. So it was mostly books and other patterns that I'd seen. And I'd also seen in a magazine someone designing fabric, a quilter, who was working for a fabric company. And I thought, wonderful. Wouldn't that be great for a fabric company to supply you with fabric and you just design the quilts for them? So I thought that would be quite a cool thing to do. And I did do a bit of that in the end. And it was fine, but I found that I got stuck with the fact that a fabric line only has so many pieces of fabric in it. And some of them are repetitive, but just in different colours. So I found that hard to create a quilt out of just that selected amount of fabric pieces. Although, it's possible, but I found the quilts end up a little bit boring for me. And I like to put many, many, many pieces of fabric in.
Yeah, and that's part of your process, obviously, the selection of fabric.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll talk about your process from beginning to end in a minute, but is part of that interest with fabric also got something to do with actually sourcing it and, talking to people and making connections and travelling to get fabric, and is it that whole idea around it?
Well, fabric for me, it's been like, I follow mostly vintage quilts or antique quilts, I suppose I'd like to call them, that go way back in history, 1800s, around about that era. And so there are a small amount, actually, really, in the big scheme of things, who reproduce those fabrics. And those are the ones that I like to source and find and recreate. Not the actual quilt from the 1800s, but I get inspired by those quilts where I might take a part of the border, or an idea will spark from looking at one. And that's when I'll just start on my own journey of creating something that is doesn't always look like an 1800 quilt, but has some part of it from there.
Has a connection.
Yeah.
And what interests you about the antique fabrics and that era?
Well, yeah, it's probably been a journey that I've been on right from the start, where I've tried all different genres of quilting. There is a genre called art quilts, where you make landscape quilts that look like landscapes or of animals, or some pictorial type of quilt. And I've tried doing that, and I've tried recreating a scene that I might have a photograph of and that kind of thing. But I realized early on that that just wasn't for me, because nature and pictorials have certain colours, which are green, brown and blue mostly.
Yeah, that's true.
And I kind of really love floral fabrics. So I guess that's what drew me to the reproductions, was to have these amazing floral fabrics that are kind of they're not like, they sort of have, some of them have a French look to them, or it's hard to explain really, but it's just, I don't know. And it's the colours, they're not bright, they're kind of murky.
Interesting. And with going back to the landscape idea of that type of quilting, could you, is there a possibility for sort of making an abstract view of a landscape using different fabrics that aren't actually the right colours? I mean, is that something, more of an abstract view of a landscape? Is that something that could happen with quilting?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people do that as well. They'll use a lot of floral and different types of fabric and create beautiful pictorial quilts. And that is something that used to inspire me as well. Yeah. But I guess you just find your niche and you find what works for you. And I also love the geometrics of the patchwork. And I think that's what draws me back all the time, is I love that fact that I can also cuddle up my quilt at night, or I can put it on my bed or whatever. But a pictorial quilt, mainly you would put on the wall.
Right.
but I can put my quilts on the wall as well.
Yeah.
So I guess that's part of what I love about it. It's hard to say. It's hard to put it into words.
Well, I guess it sort of goes back to your childhood where you're sort of making things that can be used.
Yes, very much so.
And also, I wonder if the floral connection goes back to your mum's garden.
Yeah. Yeah, I never really thought about that. Yeah, it possibly does.
So just going back to your process, talking to someone like me who doesn't have a lot of experience with quilting, can you talk us through how you would approach making a quilt?
Yeah. There's more than one way that usually, as I say, sometimes I get inspired by a picture that I've seen of a quilt, and sometimes it can be the colours. Sometimes it can be a pattern or a block in that quilt that makes me think that I'd quite like to play around more with that block. Sometimes it's a technique that I'm trying to develop more. And sometimes it's the fabric, just the fabric. So I make what's called scrap quilts as well. And scrap quilts are like when you finished using selected fabrics that you've selected for another quilt, and there's pieces left over. They are called scraps, and then you cut them up and make a bonus quilt. Really, it was said that back in the day when women had to make quilts for warmth, that they would gather as many small pieces as possible from friends, and they would swap their scraps and things to make these quilts, which is a lovely story. I'm not quite sure whether it's true or not. I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
But so I would take all my scraps, and because I use mainly reproductions, most of them fit together or blend together as far as colour's concerned. And I just, excuse me, I love to see how one colour and design of fabric sits next to another. And when you sew it together, the colour combinations that you can make from all of these different pieces. And, I would sew them into a traditional quilt block.
What's a quilt block?
Well, a quilt block quilts are made up of blocks. They're called blocks. So you might have 5 blocks long and 5 blocks down, and then you sew them all together and that forms the quilt.
Right.
Yeah. So you might have a block that's a star. You might have a block that's a tree. All sorts of different ones through from that period of 1800s through. There are an amazing amount of blocks that have been designed by women way back then when they didn't have the sewing machines and tools and everything that we've got now, or even the drafting and computers that we use to design with, So it's amazing what they accomplished.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And so those are the blocks that I use, their designs from way back then that I use in my quilts.
Right.
Sometimes it'll be something that I might have tweaked a bit or changed a little bit in to make it more personal to me. But most of the time it's straight from their design right back in the day. And I love to find antique quilts with something different that I've never seen before and use that as well.
And what sort of things could be different?
Well, there was one quilt I made and it had a complete basket blocks with baskets, and were really popular. But this particular basket block I had never seen anywhere. So I really liked that. So I sort of copied that.
That's great.
Yeah. So
it's like you're honouring something that's happened in the past.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of history goes back to those women that made those quilts in the past. And there are quilt historians who devote their life to studying those people.
Wow.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Mm.
Yeah.
So back from the blocks, what happens next?
Okay, so you make the blocks, especially in a scrap quilt. So with me, I might make one block, and then if I really like it, I might make, more. And I have a design wall, which is just a foam core board that's up on the wall, so I can stand and look at it straight on. So I put all my blocks up there, and then I play around with them until I get a combination that I like. And once I get a combination that I like, it inspires me to, make the rest of the quilt.
Build on that.
And through that whole process, you're making decisions on, you might put a sashing in, and a sashing is a strip of fabric that you put in between the blocks. Or you might put different types of borders on. So you have to decide, is it going to be a pieced border? And by pieced, I mean it's like the blocks where you're sewing in small pieces together. Or you might just put one big piece of fabric and call that a border.
Okay.
So you're constantly making decisions between design and colour as you go along.
So creative, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's really fun. And as I'm going now, I will be writing up my design, and now I use the computer. Originally, I would start just mapping it out by hand on a piece of paper. But somewhere along in my process early on, I decided I wanted it to look a bit more professional than that when I sold the pattern. So I taught myself how to use Adobe Illustrator and InDesign and Photoshop. So now I can write the design up, draw it up on Illustrator. So each process of part of the design, so I'm not sewing and then think, oh, I don't like that, so I've sewn a whole lot of stuff that I don't like. I'll work out the next part of the design on my computer and think, right, now I know where I'm going a bit more.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you start with the actual blocks on your foam board.
Yeah.
And then sort of build
it up on the computer and then find the design map that looks great. And along the way I can tweak it and change it if I think it needs it, because it looks quite different from a computer screen to what it does in actual fabric and on the wall.
Yeah.
So sometimes what you've done on the computer, you go and you sew that and put it in it. You might think, oh, no, it's not quite right. So then, you need to tweak it a little bit. But that doesn't happen, all that much, but sometimes. And I also do a lot of appliqué quilts. So with appliqué, it's got a little bit different process. I worked really hard early on when I started teaching myself how to make quilts, how to sew my appliqué by machine, because originally I did it all by hand and I didn't have enough life years in me to create all the quilts that I wanted to do. Yeah. So I started developing how to do it by machine so that it looked like I'd done it by hand. And I absolutely love my sewing machine. If I'm at my sewing machine, I feel like I'm actually producing and working. Whereas if I sit and do something by hand, I feel like that's relaxation and just for fun.
That's interesting, isn't it? That's really interesting.
I know. I don't know what that is.
Isn't it?
I think it could be because, it could stem back to mum using a sewing machine and being a dressmaker. And so I'd always thought everything was done by machine. So, yeah.
And also as a younger person, it was your hobby that you did for fun when it was the hand sewing and those kind of things. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
So once I got prolific at doing the appliqué, well enough, I started designing appliqué designs, and I would look at Baltimore quilts, which is quilts that were made in Baltimore of a certain era. I think, I'm not sure exactly if it was 1800s or earlier, but somewhere around there. And they are just the most amazing celebration of appliqué. And those women were mostly very well-to-do women who had time on their hands and could afford all the expensive fabrics and threads and tools and things. And so they would just sit in their parlours and get together and create appliqué, very genteelly.
And can you explain appliqué? I mean, is that cut out shapes stuck onto something, sewn onto something, another fabric?
Yeah, appliqué, you have a background fabric, which is just, in general, one solid fabric. And then say you wanted to put a flower design of appliqué onto that, you would have a template of your flower, which is, for me, freezer paper, which is a whole other topic. And then you would cut that out of your paper, and then I cut out of the fabric that I'm going to use for the flower with a seam allowance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you turn the edges over, and then you apply it onto the background by stitching it on, either by machine or hand.
Yeah.
So that's appliqué in a really rough general way of explaining it. Yeah, so for me, as I said, it was usually one solid background, but as I've developed, I guess it's my style. I don't think of myself as having a style, but as I've developed my quilts over time, I love to use more than one solid back for the backing, and mix up a whole lot of different fabrics that are of the same tone but light enough to keep the appliqué, so the appliqué becomes the star of the show, not the background.
Yeah.
But it gives the appliqué so much more interest and a little bit more movement, to have more fabrics involved, because you get that light and shadow going on with the fabric.
Yeah, and contrast.
Yeah, the contrast as well. So then I sort of, my appliqué patterns, I would make one block. As I explained, it's the same thing. You're going to do blocks. There are whole cloth ones as well, and that's a whole other thing. But the ones that I mostly did were like one single block, and then I would I'd have a sketchbook and just draw roughly a design, because I find that if I draw it by hand, it was easier for me to then draw it up on the computer. I kind of had a roadmap.
Yeah.
So then I would draw them up on the computer and use the computer printouts as my pattern to create the appliqué blocks. And on my website, I've quite often sold it as what's called a block of the month. So every month I would put a block on there for sale, and people would buy that block, and in the end they would make the whole quilt with me.
Oh, wow.
Basically, yeah.
Oh, we can talk about that in a minute, how you what you do online, what you offer online. So with the blocks, with the appliqué, is that sort of just creating one block and then repeating that, or do you sort of translate or sort of turn the blocks? Does it have that sort of mathematical geometry about it, or is it different?
Some of them are symmetrical, some of them aren't, and you can repeat one block. Most of the time I don't. Most of the time each block is different, because I have a problem doing the same thing twice.
Fair enough. I think I'd be the same.
But they all have a bit of a theme. For me, they have a bit of a theme. Not everybody, but just with what I do. One of them that I made was mostly about my garden and my cat.
Cool.
In the back of my mind. Yeah. Although you there's no cat in the quilt, but it was basically about him, and
that's nice. So is it they're often quite narrative?
Sometimes. I mean, that's basically where my inspiration comes from. But it doesn't necessarily mean that my quilt looks like my garden or my cat. Some people's quilts can be quite graphic and you can have cats and it is their garden. But for me, it's more just that's the inspiration that I used, and this is what came out of me.
I like that.
Yeah. And some of them based on a theme of one was just wreath blocks. You know, like you would do a Christmas wreath for your door. Well, appliqué blocks are based sometimes on that wreath shape. Some can be like a heart wreath or a round wreath or a spiral wreath, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, one of my quilts, I have little rules that I make up. And one was that each block had to have that wreath shape. So yeah. And you know, I don't always know what it's going to look like in the end. And that's always fun. And then I've also done reproductions of antique quilts as well, where I've one just recently was a quilt made in New Zealand by an early settler back in the 1800s when, you know, New Zealand was just beginning kind of thing. And she had come out originally from Scotland to Australia and then here to New Zealand. Her quilt's still at the Elms Mission House in Tauranga, and you can go and see it. It's on one of the beds. Her name was Euphemia Bellinghall Maxwell. She's quite an amazing lady. So there's a lot of her history on the internet about that.
Do you enjoy researching the people?
Yeah, it's fun. And so I did a reproduction of her quilt that's in Tauranga, and I rang them and asked them if I could do that, and they were just really wonderful about it. And yeah, so I absolutely loved doing that. But I'm not sure I could do too much more of it because I find it hard to stay on track and stay with their thoughts.
But how do you find it? I mean, you obviously, from what you've said, enjoy coming up with your own ideas and kind of responding to what you've already put down and then growing that, developing it as a practice. So how do you find reproducing when you're stuck with something that you have to make exactly the same?
Yeah, it was a long journey. I started it quite a while ago, about 3 years ago, I think. And I put it away for quite some time, but I put it away because I had deadlines that had to be taken care of.
Yeah.
But even still, it's tricky. You know, part of me is hating what I'm doing and part of me is loving it.
Yeah, it's interesting. And why did you decide to even do reproductions?
I'd seen, you know, there are quilters who do a lot of that and they're beautiful. And I think that it's nice for that quilt to live again. If it's a special quilt that it meant something to me as well, you know, because it had been somebody who was in New Zealand. A lot of them are reproduced from people in America or England. You know, they have much stronger, longer history than us with all of this. Whereas to me, I thought it was quite special that there were actually women in New Zealand who were doing it. And I'd been to the Auckland Museum and they had shown me some of the quilts in the basement that had been also in New Zealand as well.
Wow.
And there were some, you know, amazing quilts in there. And I thought, how, you know, they're just stuck in the basement in the museum. Wouldn't it be great to have that, you know, example, you know, in the real world again?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And they're, you know, they're so old that they're going to, you know, be gone one day.
Yeah.
Also.
So you're giving them a new life almost.
Yeah, and it gives other people the opportunity to make them as well. You know, because I'll turn them into patterns. Yeah,
which is nice. And then what do you do with those? You know, if you were to make one, do you always use it yourself, or do you give it away, or do you use it as an example for the pattern?
I use it as an example for the pattern. I also use it to teach. I've done quite a bit of teaching quilt making in the past, and they were always my samples and things that I showed. It wasn't necessarily what I was teaching, but it was always interesting to students to have a look and see what could be done.
Right.
Also, yeah, and we use them. I hang them on the wall in my home. Every now and again I change them around.
Beautiful.
And that's what that's something that perhaps in the future I could get into selling them, but it's hard to know just how much they're worth.
Once again, there's that issue.
Yeah.
That's difficult, isn't
it? It is a very difficult kind of thing to judge. There are ways and equations of working it all out, but it's not just the monetary factor, because when you've spent so long with those fabrics and that time making it, it becomes part of you.
I can imagine.
And it's quite hard to let it go.
Yeah, it's like, making a painting, or
yes,
it's an art form that you are so connected with. It's so personal.
It is, and there's so much history in your life that's involved in it. Because like I said, I started it 3 years ago. So 3 years of my life is tied up in that quilt.
That's
3
right.
years of memories of things that I was doing when I was making that quilt that were going on in my family.
And things
and
you
all
were
of that.
thinking about while you were making.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's actually, I've never really thought of it like that, but somebody putting in that kind of time, you're putting so much of yourself into it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it's amazing.
I made a quilt for my youngest son. My youngest son's been a bit of a traveller in his young life, and he spent 3 years in London, and he was making his way home, and he was travelling as he was coming home, and I was so excited, because I just missed him so much. So I decided I would make him a quilt, and the block that I used was called Flying Home. Was the traditional name of the block.
Right.
Oh, no, sorry. I was wrong. That was what I called it, the quilt. Because all quilts you give names to.
Okay.
You name them and you label them. But the block was called Birds in the Air, because I sort of imagined him flying from one place to the other, and he was with his
Coming
girlfriend.
back to his
So
mama.
yeah. So, once again, all those memories were going into that quilt as I was making it, for him.
So special, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, how do you go about selling? I mean, do you actually sell very much of what you actually make, or is it more about selling the patterns?
I don't think I've ever I have never sold a quilt.
Wow.
I've given quilts away to family members and friends. But no, I've never sold a quilt.
Wow. So I guess the business model with that is tricky, isn't it? So
yeah.
So just have you finished speaking about your actual process?
Yeah.
There's nothing else you'd like to add before we start talking about your business?
No, I don't think so. No, it's pretty much.
It's really interesting. It actually makes me feel quite inspired.
Good.
What you're talking about. I mean, my mum was a dressmaker also, and I was a bit anti-sewing really.
Yeah.
So I have, and I'm not really one for taking lots of steps to get to something. I'm a bit more of a thrill seeker. I need to get to the end more quickly.
Well, I would have thought myself as being like that. But I guess it's a process, and I enjoy every part of that process. So, to start with, it's thinking about the design, and then it's choosing the fabrics, and then it's piecing them together, and then it's once again thinking about the design to get it finished, and then it's also the quilting. The quilting is a whole other story.
Yeah. So what is quilting? The sewing, the attaching?
Yeah. So you have 3 layers. So when you've made a quilt top, that's just the top that you've made. And then you sandwich it together with a backing fabric, which is quite often one solid fabric again, but you can piece it together as well. And then you have what's called a batting, which is usually wool or cotton or a blend of things, and then you layer them together with pins, or there's several ways of doing that, and then you put it under either the sewing machine, or some people have big long arm quilting machine specifically made for that, but I just use my sewing machine, and you stitch over the top of it to quilt it. And you either do that, what's called free motion, which means you don't have any feed dogs. You lower the feed dogs on your sewing machine and you can move from side to side in any direction that you want.
Oh, wow.
Or you have just what's called a walking foot, because you have 3 layers. You need a foot that is going to move properly over the fabric. So a walking foot will... it's like when you have a feed dog, the feed dog feeds the fabric through from the bottom, but not the top, and the walking foot will feed it through from the top as well.
Okay.
So you have both layers being fed through evenly at the same time.
Wow.
And that will do straight lines for you. Yeah,
interesting. Well, there's so much to it, isn't there, really?
Yeah.
There's probably so much more that you haven't even touched on.
So with the quilting, that's a whole other design process. So you can do any design you want on your quilt, and then there's thread.
Wow.
and there's a whole other story.
And that's another design aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can choose different threads from metallic right through to very, very fine. Yeah.
I guess the quilting or the fabric shops or the thread shops are your happy places alongside being at your sewing machine.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. It's like gardeners who love going to gardening stores, garden centres.
I love all the tools and the notions and things that you can use. Yeah, it's great. It's good fun.
It's a real sort of encompassing craft or art, isn't it? Really. Yeah, it's so nice to talk to you about this, because it's something that I haven't really understood, and you don't really hear all that much about it. I think you would in quilting circles, obviously.
Yeah.
But, like we've just done the Middle Eye Art Show down the road, and we didn't have any quilts in the show.
No, because I guess perhaps I'm a little bit, I don't know, maybe I'm not so different, but a lot of people that quilt make them as like they'll make them for their family or whatever, and they don't really think of, and there are a lot that send them away to be quilted, so they don't do the quilting, so they'll just do the top, and a long arm quilter will quilt it for them,
right,
which is fine. That's fine. But a lot of people are just it is just sewing. Do you know what I mean? It's not.
They look down on it.
No, it's not that they look down on it. It's kind of like a hobby, and they just sew. Right. They, because they're following a pattern and they're just putting it together for somebody that's a friend or, and that's wonderful. That they're doing that. But it's kind of different to the way I look at it. To me, I'm creating something.
Yeah. But you're still creating something to be used.
Yeah.
And I guess, there's that shift. There has been a big shift between sort of the traditional crafting that women have done for a purpose, and it's coming more into the art world, isn't it? I mean, do you see yourself as an artist?
Artist is a really hard word to say about myself, although I don't feel that I'm not an artist. I just do what I do.
Yeah.
And it's something that I have to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's the first thing I think about in the morning. First thing I want to do is go to my sewing machine, and I've usually been woken up because there's something going on in my mind that I need to go and sort out.
Well, that's great though, isn't it, to have something you're so passionate about?
It is great, but it can be a bit of a curse in one way, and something absolutely amazing to have in the other way. And I'm also really, really fortunate to have the family that I have who supports me through all of that.
Yeah.
My husband especially, he, like I had the kids, we have a business and that, and he's always been really, really busy, working in the business and stuff, and never really had the time to sort of, change nappies or bath children and do all that kind of thing that some of the young dads are kind of do. And so when my boys were leaving home age, I felt quite guilty and thought maybe I should get a job.
Get a real job.
Get a real job. And he sort of said to me, no, you don't have to do that. I want you to do something for yourself, and I want you to find that thing that you really want to do, and you don't have to make money from it. And I just thought, how wonderful for someone to say that, to give you that chance to
that's really supportive,
just do what you want. Yeah.
After all those years of not thinking of yourself.
Yeah.
It was your time.
So, I really have to thank him for, supporting me in that way.
For allowing yourself, allowing you that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say now it's probably his time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, it became a business.
It did.
A great business. And, when I looked into your work and your website, I just was so impressed with the way you've put it all together and all the things that are in there in your website and all the different things you're doing, is incredible. So
thank you.
You've made it a great business, and you're obviously well thought of. I've looked through your social media and you've got lots of followers. And, that's amazing to do that sort of. I guess it was a little bit later in life, wasn't it, that you got into that?
I think we moved to South Head when I was about 37, and it was probably then that I really started to think about. I had more time, I wasn't going out quite so much because we lived so rural then.
Yeah,
and my boys had sort of grown up quite a bit by that stage. I think. So I was starting to sort of think about what am I going to do? What's for me? And,
And so you had that website that your son's friend created for you.
Yes.
So that was obviously the beginning.
Yeah.
But how have you managed to get it all together like this with, what are the actual things that you provide through your website?
Well, my website sort of started, as I said, way back then, and I had decided that I needed things to fill the website up with. I only had 2 patterns. And I kind of got into buying fabric wholesale and trying to sell fabric and thread and, quilting notions on my website. And then it kind of grew because I then decided, well, in order to sell fabric, you really need to have samples. That people can see the fabric made up into whatever, and that sort of encourages them to make whatever that is. So then I had to use that fabric, or part of that fabric, to make whatever samples. So then that grew my pattern business as well, because I was selling the patterns that went with that,
Yeah.
But it wasn't really what I wanted to do, if you know what I mean, because then I felt like I was creating a shop, and I didn't want to be in a position where I was having to go into town to post things off all the time and be a shop where somebody said, I want this reel of thread in this colour, and, you don't have it on your website. And so I thought, no, I don't really want to be in that position. I want to be the one who creates the patterns.
Yeah, that's the thing that lights your fire.
Yeah, so that was, where I really wanted to be. And I had a friend who helped me. At times we would do classes in the Helensville Lodge Hall once a month, which I really enjoyed. And we would take the shop stuff, like all the fabrics and the samples and stuff, and it was great. And I had a lovely following of ladies that used to come, but it started getting too much for my friend because she had a full-time job as well, and we were doing block of the months and things. So and we'd done one of the big shows in Auckland,
and you were selling patterns through the
patterns as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard in business, isn't it? Just kind of figuring out what to do, and
it was finding your path.
Everything.
Yeah. So Jackie said, that it was getting a bit hard for her, and I understood that. So it was either we get a premises and go the whole hog so that she, had a job as such.
Yeah.
or not. And I just thought, I don't want to be somewhere at 8 o'clock and have to stay there till 5. And, it really wasn't what I wanted to do. And I love being at home. So that was it. I decided, no, I'd continue just doing the creative bit. So then I started doing a lot of work for magazines and submitting my designs to magazines all over the world and getting my name out there.
Fantastic.
Because I thought that, that was the way to go.
Yeah. And what were you putting in magazines?
My designs. So I would design a quilt, and I still do that, and submit it to a magazine, and then I'd have to write the pattern and send the quilt to them. They put it in their magazine.
Send the quilt, the finished quilt.
The finished quilt.
Oh, wow.
And the pattern.
Okay.
And then they would they'd photograph it, and they put the pattern in the magazine, and so I'd get paid for that. And then they send the quilt and everything back to me, and you sign a contract which says that then they all differ, but most of them say, like, after 2 months of the magazine being published, the rights return back to me, and then I can sell the pattern on my website.
Wow.
So that's what I've done quite a lot of.
That's great. And that's quilting magazines.
Quilting magazines.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
I've been quite choosy as to which magazines I send them to. There's one in France, one in England, and I've done one in America and Australia. So that, to me, was quite a good circle of the globe.
Totally. Yeah. A good sort of circumnavigation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And that's quite gutsy to put yourself out there like that.
It was quite daunting. I started with the Australian magazine, and I'd made this appliqué quilt that I was really, really proud of. And I thought, it might take more than once before they'll accept one of my quilts. But it didn't. They come straight back to me, and they really wanted it. And I was so over the moon and so excited. And then they have a trade show in Australia twice a year, one in Melbourne and one in Sydney. And they were having the one in Melbourne, and they wrote to me and asked me if I would mind if they had my quilt as a backdrop in their trade show stand.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, this is great. So I got a friend and we went across and had a look.
Oh, that's so
just
good,
to see what it was all about.
Yeah.
So the next year I had my own stand there at Melbourne, and another one a year later in Sydney, selling my patterns to shops in Australia. And so that was fun.
And I guess once you get yourself out there, then they keep coming back for more once you've made a connection.
I still have some of those shops that order my patterns. I have selected shops that I sell patterns to. I don't have a lot of them, but just selected ones in America, Australia, and France. Mainly because my patterns are written as PDFs, not as printed patterns. And I find that I'm pretty controlling, and I can control how they look and whatever as a PDF.
They can't mess with it.
Yeah, well, they kind of can, but that's I find that print quality doesn't always justify what I'm trying to do, and also where I live plays a big part in it. I don't want to be travelling backwards and forwards to the post shop.
Yeah, fair enough.
So my husband really early on, told me that I should only do PDFs because that was the way of the future. He's actually right.
So you just send it like online, send it through.
I don't have to do anything.
It's all there.
It happens automatically.
So you've set up, you've actually done incredibly well. You know, that you've, from someone who loved to make quilts and loved to sew, you've created this empire basically which has so many different aspects. You're dealing with magazines, your trade shows, classes, pattern making, you're
Writing.
making your quilts. Is there anything else you do within that umbrella?
I have written one book so far. I hope to write more, and I'm just preparing a body of quilts for the second one.
Wow. And what's the book? Is it full of patterns?
It's full of patterns,
photos of made
techniques,
quilts.
and yeah. So there's a company in America called Martingale who published lots of craft books and quilt books. And they actually approached me, and so that was really thrilling because every year I've kind of set myself a goal of where I want to be and what I want to do. And obviously the first year was to get a quilt in a magazine, and then it's like get it into a Supreme magazine, one that I really, really aspire to. And then as I've managed to make those goals, I've then made another one. So the main goal for a long time has been to write a book, but I've never quite been brave enough to write out the proposal.
For the publisher.
Yes, because you hear about the proposal sitting on someone's desk and not being seen, or what I'm going to write might not inspire them. So I've never really been, confident enough to do that proposal, because there are a lot of very good American quilters who seem to write books all the time, and I've never really put myself in their category. And for them to actually ask me was really quite amazing. Yeah. So I definitely said yes to that. And it started off being a book of just a few small quilts. And then when I told them about the fact that I'd like to put my appliqué techniques and different things in the book, because to me, if I wrote a book and it might be the only book I wrote, I wanted that to be in there that somebody could actually learn from it, as well as not just being a whole lot of patterns. Yeah,
and that's what you're about, isn't it?
Well. So they then decided that they would make it a bit more of more pages and a bit more of a technique book as well, which was really great. I was so thrilled with that.
Wow. Then that's been published, has it?
Yeah, it got published a couple of years ago.
That's so fantastic, Sharon. Yeah. Congratulations.
So, thank you.
Yeah, and I bet you wouldn't have imagined that, when you started off.
I never would have dreamed I would have been able to do something like that. No. Never, And I certainly didn't think that my website would get me to where I am.
You're really reaching people across the world.
Yeah.
With it.
Yeah.
And your followers and, I wonder, how do you think you've made that happen?
Well, a lot of it is just hard work.
Yeah.
And it's not all just sitting in your sewing room sewing. I write a lot. I've written a blog for years and I've done a lot of tutorials. I've done YouTube tutorials as well.
Wow. You're amazing. We've got what we've done. We've been going for 1 hour and 3 minutes, and suddenly all this amazing stuff, even more amazing stuff, is coming. out.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done.
Well, it's hard to think of it. It just happens.
Yeah,
as you go along, it just builds up.
You've achieved so much.
Yeah.
So keep talking. Sorry, I interrupted.
Well, social media, which hasn't always been around. And so I guess I've had the opportunity to jump on board when it was an early thing, which has been quite good.
And you've done really well with that too. I mean,
I think if you're passionate about something.
Yeah, you want to share.
And the pictures and stories that you share are real and there's good content. I think I don't put pictures on every day and I don't think I ever could. And I have weeks where I don't put anything on. But I think because what I put on is true to me.
Yeah.
It seems to work.
Yeah, and that makes it easier, doesn't it, when it feels authentic.
Yeah.
And it's your passion.
Yeah, absolutely. So
amazing.
So
now you've got a thriving business that's a full-time job.
It is.
And, pays the bills.
Yeah.
And which was not really what you intended at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I've been able to, set myself up with the money that I've earned through the business, with sewing machines, and I've now got 4 of them, whereas I used to have to beg, borrow and steal one, and all the tools and fabrics that I need to do it, so it's really cool.
It's brilliant.
As well as, provide things for the home.
Yeah. And then a lot of joy to many people around the world.
Yeah.
What a privilege.
And my youngest son is going to be building me a studio in the end of this year, I hope. It keeps getting put back a little bit because he's a builder. And hopefully I might be able to have a small classroom in it, or an area where I can teach. But I won't be teaching all the time. Maybe just, once or twice a year I'll have a small group come in.
That sounds great. Yeah. And I hope your son still has his flying high duvet quilt.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
Good
Both
man.
my boys love my quilt, so that's good. Yeah.
It means
they're very, very supportive. I'm really, really lucky.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And how do you actually juggle, your family life and your home, and your garden, and then all those business things that you manage and run, and then the actual making of the quilts? I mean, I'm actually surprised you don't have people working for you.
Yeah, no. Well, I couldn't have anyone working for me because it all has to come from me. I feel that's how I feel about it anyway, and I couldn't stop that creative thing, like if somebody else sewed it, I'd feel like I was missing out on part of it. I did sort of think about somebody helping me with the social media part, but then I feel like it's not coming from me.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, Sharon.
Yeah.
I'm the same.
I have a newsletter that I write, and my daughter-in-law Holly has been helping me with that, but it's not, she doesn't write it as such.
Yeah.
I still write it, but she'll go and tweak it and, just make it look a bit better, which is what I need.
You still need your voice. You want your voice.
Yeah, yeah. And she's great. She's really great at that. So that helps. But as far as managing all the other stuff, that's not easy. Okay. I'm pretty organized person, and I like to have my house tidy. So I kind of spend an hour, in the mornings tidying up the house, because otherwise if things are a mess, I can't create.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
And you've never thought about getting a cleaner?
I kind of have had in the past, and then I get I can't do it. I have to be in control.
Yeah, I was going to say the control word, but
yeah, absolutely. My husband just shakes his head and laughs. I've had lawn mowing people too, and the same thing happens.
Yeah, I can imagine. You're amazing to be able to manage it all. Yeah,
well, I must admit my garden suffers. But I had a back injury. I was about 40, roundabout. And so the garden's always been a bit difficult since then, although it was quite a passion for me before that. So yes, my garden has suffered. But I do find that the comparison between getting outside, because you're sitting at a sewing machine all the time.
Yeah.
So, sometimes I'll think it's be a beautiful day, and I'll be working away in my sewing room, and then I'll just look outside and I'll just stop, and I'll make myself go outside for an hour and do some gardening, because you need to get outside. You need that different motion for your body as well, because sewing can be really hard on your body. I like to go for a walk when I can, usually around the farm, and things. But I don't know. It just happens. I just do it. I do a lot of my, family comes first, and so they're always taken care of first. Yeah.
Oh, you're an amazing woman.
Thank you.
This is why my friend said to talk to you, obviously. And I can see that you are completely passionate about what you do and you love it. And, isn't it great to be able to do something that you love so much?
Yeah. I couldn't imagine life not doing that.
And what do you love most about it?
Oh, I think the tactile thing of the fabric really is probably the thing I really love. And I just love the sound of the sewing machine humming, when you know that it's working and things are going right and things are looking good. It's great.
Great sense of satisfaction.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm going to have to wrap it up here, I'm afraid, Sharon. I could keep talking to you for another 2 hours. There's a lot more I'd like to talk about with, the idea of bringing quilts into art exhibitions and, making it more accessible as a sort of valued piece of art, and how people could manage that, how you could manage to make work that could be shown and sold within your capacity. It's quite, as you said, it's hard to actually give up the quilt.
Yeah.
So, it would be interesting to talk more about that. Maybe we could have another chat further down the track about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting for me, but we just don't really have time.
Okay.
But thank you so much. I have learned a lot. And as I said, and my mum would be proud, feel like I'd like to kind of play with some fabric and do something interesting. I'm not sure how good I'd be at following the pattern, but I've just got so much admiration for what you do creatively, and I think that you are an artist. You're obviously incredibly clever and creative and do amazing things, and it's just really simply different tools and using different medium. It's no different to someone who's painting to me.
Yeah.
You're just using thread and fabric and other media.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think you'd be absolutely justified to call yourself an artist.
Thank you.
And an amazing entrepreneur.
Thank you very much, Mandy.
You're welcome. So, I'll wrap it up, and I hope everyone's enjoyed listening to this incredible process that you go through. I'm sure they have. And, good luck, and look forward to the next book.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining me, Sharon.
Bye.
Bye.